Well, hello, and thank you for being here with me today on a very uh, critical topic, which I think is in today's society is one of the most controversial questions and also one of the most challenging questions, especially for us, for Christians. And I often experience it as one of the questions that is approached with the most fear nowadays. So let me go into this dilemma of law or love, how to raise questions in God's ways, and let's look at the everyday questions. Often it is approached, as you see it in the title, is it law or is it love? The arguments about it are often about either or. How could you have both of them? The question goes further because if we have our own kids at home, we find ourselves on a daily basis battling with family rules and home rules in our home, and also how much we love them. And we often have the question, are the rules because we love them, or is it because of us? When we are talking today, and as I'm talking and we are thinking together about this question, I would like to encourage you to think not only 2-3-year-old kids, because they are adorable, and when it comes to law, they are just we are just starting to build law with them. But I also would like you to consider thinking about 6-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 12, 13, 14-year-olds, 18-year-olds, and also go further. How about your 22-year-old? So when we are talking about raising kids, although it is a long span, I really would like you to think in a long span, or long range of ages. As a counselor, I often find our clients experiences from their past, from their childhood and their parenting home where they're coming from, that overdoing either the law or overdoing the love version or underdoing either or will result, for example, with mental health issues. Many times it will affect their personality issues. Often it will influence their identity, how they see themselves as individuals, how they see themselves and as men and women as they grow up, how they see themselves in their relationships, how they see themselves in their jobs and in this world. It is influencing their relationship to others, how they relate to others, how they connect to each other. It is influencing their worldview. It is not just an everyday, how am I managing my house? How are we managing our family? It is a lot more. The question is a lot more important question than just everyday living. It will influence our worldview and also our God image. And it will influence the hope for the future, whether we have it or not. When it is overdone or underdone, and it is missing from the screen that it can be underdone, either direction. Interestingly enough, what I have experienced in counseling is that it results in same issues, very similar issues. Whether we are overdoing love or law, or underdoing love or law, the result will be often a feeling of helplessness. I'm lost in this world. I don't know how to do it. Just think about it. For example, I have clients who tell me about very demanding parents with very strict rules and who have been kept in very strict boundaries. And they will say, I don't know how can I manage in this world on my own. I don't know what happens once I left my parents' home. They find themselves helpless because there is nobody else, nobody out there who would tell them where to go and what to do. They have never learned to think on their own. They have only learned to think by rules. See, rules are important, but it is not maturity yet. Rules is the beginning of growth. And once we grow out of our childhood, maturity will be rules that are implanted into our hearts. It will be more of a relational thing rather than something that is put on us. Still staying with helplessness, I have also clients who have been overloved, who have received everything that parents could give them. Most of the time, the everything is especially in the first 6 years of their lives, when they are very little and they are just so cute. That's the best word for it. And as the parents delighting in them, they think, I want to give you everything I have. I want you to have it all. And as they keep showering the kids with their love without any law and any discipline, these children often grow up to be also lost and helpless because they don't know what is a safe area of their life, where to go, and from what point to what point is a safe area. It's like having a fence around your house. In America, I know that most houses don't have fences. But in Hungary, every single house has a fence around it. And I am a mother of 5 children. And I remember when I lived in America, when I moved to America for a while with my children, I remember the first thing that scared me was, where is the fence? How will they know where to stop? How will they know where not to go further when the ball rolls out to the road? This without fences, this boundaryless situation is when love is overdone and it results in helplessness. The same way it will bring anxiety. Both extremes bring anxiety. Often it brings shame, especially if the love is not given to the children and the rules of the home are extreme. Many times we will see shame-based identities who come from a childhood, a home where love was not present and only the rules of the home were known to the children. Both extremes of this continuum can result in depression. Depression because all the anxiety and the helplessness, and also the feeling that I am not mature for this life. Our children are facing an era, a time period when everything is unstable and insecure. Everything is given of a free choice. Their worldview can be their choice. And if they don't find a worldview that they can adjust to, they can make up their own worldview and it still will be okay. So depression often comes from the pressure of not having guidelines in this life. And often the other side, that they have guidelines, but they don't know what it feels like to be connected to somebody, to be in relationship with somebody, because the adult, the parent, was only a ruler, but not the one who delighted in their souls. And as we go further, all these issues can result in addictions. And we can go all the way from alcohol and drug to porn addiction, sexual addictions. The result of not finding the right place in this continuum can be devastating. And we often see it in our offices when we see clients coming to us and saying, I don't know what's going on, but something is really not right because I'm hurting deeply inside. So I would like to invite you to think with me in this hour and go through some of the aspects of this continuum, because whenever whenever I'm thinking about a topic in counseling, in life, in raising children, or even when I'm thinking about what is right, I always look at the continuum and I look at the extremes, because one thing I know for sure is that extremes are unhealthy. So whatever is healthy and whatever is godly is somewhere in between, but we need to find it according to God's word. So what, instead of the extremes, let's see what is in the middle. Let's look at law and discipline. What is society's opinion on parental rules and discipline? We Christians are struggling with these questions because today's society puts a pressure on us, saying that law, family rules, and discipline is abuse. It is against the child. It is hurting the child. It is hurting their growth. They are saying it is limiting. They say their creativity cannot grow because of family rules and discipline. When I hear this limiting comment, I remember, I keep remembering my college years when I had the exams, the papers, where the professor said something that I really, really hated. And it was when he said, this is a paper and the topic is of your choice. I hated topics of my choice, because in the minute the topic of my choice was given, I realized that I keep going, should I go this way or should I go that way? Should I pick mood disorders or should I pick personality disorders? And I kept wandering between topics because everyone seemed so interesting and I didn't want to lose on any of them, yet I couldn't commit myself to any of them. Interestingly, but when the professor said, write me a paper on grief, suddenly I felt like creativity flushed all over me, because it was a topic that I could just plunge into and enjoy searching and looking for different aspects of it, different dimensions, different questions and answers. See, discipline and law is like giving a title to different aspects of their lives. It is not limiting. It is giving a title to their creativity. They often say, public opinion, that law, family rules, and discipline is an antidote of love. They say that if we loved our children, then we shouldn't be disciplining. They say that love gives space to whatever you want to do. Love gives everything to you. Love doesn't limit. Love doesn't say no. And we who are counselors, we know how far that is from the truth, because we have seen people who have never been told no and who have been never taught to say no. Law, family rules, and discipline is like guidelines for life, for a person, for our children who are coming in a world that is like a labyrinth. I remember when most of my children, when they left high school and they started college, almost every one of them, I have one more who is going to college, 4 of them already either graduated or are still in college. But I remember that all the 4 of them at the end of the 3rd month, the first semester, first quarter, they somehow, after about 3 months out of high school, they started to make comments like, I thought the adult world would be nicer. I thought it would be more fun. This is very confusing. This is depressing. This is hurting. Adults are not what I thought they would be. I think when we give them laws, when we give them rules, we actually give them guidelines for life. We give them guidelines for the real world. So when we are not there, they could still find their way. It is important for them to have rules and guidelines for the development of their personality. The personality is, in some ways, it is fixed, but it has space to grow. We are born with certain characteristics, but the development of a personhood is a beautiful challenge, and I hope it lasts for a lifetime for all of us. At least for me, I hope I will keep on growing and developing and changing according to God's desire. Laws and discipline influence our social skills. It will affect the way we relate to classmates, to teachers, to professors. Later on, it will affect how we relate to our supervisors, bosses, colleagues, husband and wife, our grandparents and our in-laws, our neighbors. Social skills are not just given and of our choices. We live in social context, and we cannot allow our children to get into a very complicated adult world without social skills. But healthy social skills will come from law, rules, and discipline. And also, I marked there, as you see on my slide, emotion regulations. We hear more and more about resilience and the resilience factor. It is a very in topic nowadays, especially in coaching. And we also hear about emotional intelligence. We hear how important it is. I do a lot of coaching next to my counseling, and I go to companies and I do executive coaching, and I am surprised to find out the struggle they have with emotion regulations. Emotion regulations I usually describe in a very simple way to them. It is the ability to calm myself down when I am overly excited, overly nervous, overly anxious, the ability to calm myself down. It is the ability to lift myself up when I am really down, when I really feel hopeless, when I'm hurt. Instead of dwelling in the pain, I learn to lift myself up. It is another form of emotion regulation, or self-motivation, when I'm able to get moving towards a goal that I can fall in love with or that I hate, but I know is required for life. Emotion regulations are a very important part of our children's lives. And if we don't discipline them, we are doing wrong to them, because they will not learn how to calm down, how to self-soothe their pain, and how to be motivated to achieve the goals that they have to or that they want to. When I talk about law and rules and discipline, I'm thinking about teaching them right and wrong. We are living in a time when right and wrong doesn't exist. They say it's all relative. Everything goes according to your choice. But is that what we really believe? Is it what we really believe according to the Bible? Is that what God's word says? Because that we know that we Christians, we believe that there is truth. And it is not the truth of our choice, but the truth of God. And there is such thing as right and wrong decision. There is such thing as right and wrong words. And there is such thing as right or wrong behavior. Responsibility is a very crucial question that I hear more and more about how companies don't know what to do with their employees because they are not responsible. And people are losing their jobs because they cannot manage their responsibility at work. And it is because they had parents who never gave them rules, who never disciplined them, who never gave them laws of life. Many times people are devastated because they don't understand what is happening to them, because they don't realize that their actions, their words have consequences. It is us, parents, who need to teach our children that your words, your behavior, even your thoughts will have consequences. I think one of the most difficult things for me as a parent is allowing my kids experience the consequences of their decisions. I remember once when one of my kids kept missing the bus to school. And as I would get up early and have my morning devotion and my coffee and planning on to have a calm morning and go to work, suddenly my kid would get up late and run to me and being really nervous, ask me about, Mom, I'm really sorry, I will never do this again, but would you please take me to school? So here I am, mom, loving her child and saving him, and jump into the car in my pajamas and rush him to school and rush back, and there goes my morning. And next day I do it again. And next day I do it again. And every time I'm angrier and angrier with him because I don't have our rules. I don't stick to discipline and laws that I have in my house. I tell him, you do it ever again, you know what? I'm not taking you to school. But what do I do next morning? I take him to school. One day it hit me that I am wronging him. I'm going to hurt him on the long run. It might be easier for both of us right now to just take him to school, but he will never learn what his decisions will have as consequences. I remember the day when I prayed about it and I told him, if you don't get up tomorrow morning, I will let you be late from school. Oh, you know how kids are. Of course, Mom. Of course, I will never do that. I understand you. You're right. So next morning comes, and I look at the clock, and he's not up. And look at the clock, and minutes go by, and he's not up. And then he wakes up late, and he runs down and says, Mom, I know what we discussed yesterday, just one more time. And how painful it was to look at him and say, no, not this time. It was very painful. I remember he looked at me and he said, Mom, it's raining, it's pouring out there. The only way I can get to school is if I run all the way. And I said, then you run all the way in the rain. I remember looking out the window, the kitchen window after him, and I was crying. I don't think I was crying for him. I was crying because it took so much energy out of me to come to the point of letting him learn the consequences. It's a small example, but I knew at the time if I don't teach him the consequences about missing the bus, then how will I teach him the consequences of having drugs, of having multi-sexual relationships? How will I teach him the consequences of God's law if on the little I am not faithful? And yes, believe it or not, he never missed the bus again. We need to teach our kids the difference between righteous and evil. In today's society, we are told that there is no such thing as righteous and evil. It is just like right and wrong. Everything is relevant. But we know it's not true. There are evil deeds. There are evil words. And there are righteous words. It is a challenging thing to teach our children to go against everybody else's opinion. It is a challenging thing to teach our children to adjust their opinion, their laws, their inner laws, to the Bible. Adjusting it to the Bible now might be just an obedience towards the parents, but hopefully will become a part of their own life, their own convictions. But much of it depends on us parents. What is the biblical answer on parental rules and discipline? We can read, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right." We often talk about children obey your parents, and we stop here. But I had abused clients who came to me and said, "My father, my mother beat me with this word," but they were never being in the Lord. I have never seen them being in the Lord. If we want our children to obey us, then we have to be in the Lord first. We must obey God, because when we are obeying God, we are keeping His commandments and His rules. When we are allowing God to discipline us, this is when we are showing our kids, our children, that this is how discipline feels like, and this is how obedience looks like. We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ. I think it is a very, very critical question of raising children. Are we allowing God to take every thought that we have captive to obey Christ? Our children are watching. They are watching every step we make. They are watching every word we say. They are watching us when we are speeding, and they are watching us when we are slowing down, when we see the camera. That is obedience. They are watching us when we make faces while talking on the phone. They are watching the contradiction between our faces and our words. Very little things, tiny things, are the ones that set example to our children. If we want them to obey us, first we must obey God. And when it comes to biblical answer on rules and discipline, discipline is God's love to reconcile us into relationship with Him. The goal of discipline, the function of discipline, is reconciliation into a relationship. It is for the Lord disciplines the ones He loves, and chastises every son whom He receives. It is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? It's very clear. Love is disciplining. God is disciplining us. And for us, the guideline is, how is God treating us? That's what we should be doing to our children. I think one of the major problems is that we look at discipline as something that is separate from relationship. It is not an outside rule. It is not distinct alone, and we have a relationship here and rules here. Laws and rules are related to a part of our relationship. It is blending together. It cannot be separated. Rules and disciplines are to reconcile us into relationship with God, and to reconcile our children into a relationship with us. So what are the challenges of parents today? I think one of the biggest mistakes that parents often do is disciplining out of mood, out of anger, out of irritation, out of just anxiety or rage, whatever feelings or mood they have from work or from marital conflict. Disciplining should be never done out of mood. It should be for reconciliation to a loving relationship. The challenge for parents is that they fear that they will hurt their children. When it comes to disciplining and when it comes to approaching and helping our children, I really am convinced that first we need to set ourselves in front of God and say, how am I inside? How am I with you, God? How am I right? And when do I need to be corrected by you? How can I love my children the best way? Often parents are afraid of disciplining their children because they are afraid of losing their love. Parents are often afraid that, will they hate me? Remember the story I told about my son and letting him go and bear the consequences of sleeping in? Oh, I was afraid. I was afraid of him not loving me and hating me and being angry at me. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, he's going to one day see a counselor and tell him or her about his terrible mother, who I was. It is challenging to discipline, and because we don't want to have frictions between us. But see, if we avoid the friction, if we avoid the conflict, then they will be facing a greater conflict in life. It is for them. It is love. Often I see that parents are not disciplining because of laziness. Well, I maybe shouldn't call it laziness. I shouldn't be so strict with that word. Maybe it is just fatigue. We have long days and demanding jobs and a lot of responsibilities. And to discipline a child, maybe tomorrow, let him go. But tomorrow will never come if we approach it. Keeping laws and rules and disciplining our children is exhausting. It is very exhausting. It is very demanding. But God calls us to love them with all our energy. And we are also facing the challenge of the fear of public opinion. Public opinion, which says you're not loving your kids if you are putting rules on them. Public opinion that says there is no such thing as right or wrong or evil. Everything is good. Everything is relevant. Everything is okay. Give them the choice. Let them decide. Their choice will never be their choice. Whatever they choose, if we don't give them laws and rules and convictions, their choice will be whatever the public will put on them. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, once said that whoever chooses for his guide the public opinion, which is the weakest opinion and the weakest guide, for him, nothing is clear. Public opinion changes from one day to the other. There are waves of opinions, but God's laws are stable and never changing. They are secure. They are good. They are life-giving. And we need to approach our family rules, our family laws, our discipline with the attitude of God, who says, I love you. I love you so much that I give you rules and regulations, and I will hold you for them. I will hold you accountable for them because I love you. I'm thinking not about just the present, but the future. For a self-reflection on your own, when you get some time, I encourage you to ask yourself, where am I with God's rules and discipline? Let's look at the love question: love, forgiveness, and encouragement. Society's opinion on love and forgiveness and encouragement is quite contradictory, because they say love is giving it all. They say love is showering with all. I have been many times surprised that couples would come to me. I often do sex therapy for couples, and I also do infertility therapy, which is if they have had, the infertile couples had no biological reasons, they would come and see me if there is anything underneath that they haven't realized about their attitude towards parenthood, or any pain in the past, or any fear for the future. So when I talk with couples like that, it is interesting how many times I have couples who would say, I don't want to have children. I'd rather have a dog. I go to the supermarket and I just hate little kids. They are little brats as they're running around and screaming and messing up everything, and nobody controls them. That's a result we don't want to see. We don't want to shower to the extreme, giving it all. Interestingly, that they will say these, today's society's opinion is that forgiveness is not the same as loving, because you give all, but you don't forgive unless you earn my forgiveness. How contradictory. How wonderful that God is working totally differently. They say forgiveness, you earn it, and you earn it again. And maybe it was 2-3 weeks ago, but you know what? I still remember. So beg me again, and beg me again. And they're holding grudges and reminding their children for years that I don't forget what you've done, and making them slaves of their past. And society's opinion on encouragement is also very changing. Often it is just a nice word. It's like a cliche. Everything is encouraged. You can do it all. You can have it all. You can go for it all. But for what? What is the truth behind it? Is it parental gain? Don't bother me. I'm encouraging you. Just don't bother me. You can do it all. Of course you can do it all. You don't need me. Or is it the present mood? Today I feel like encouraging you, and tomorrow I don't. Or is it the audience of other parents? Oh, everybody's watching me, so I'm going to be a good parent. I don't really care, but you know what, honey? You can do it. No, our kids cannot do it all. And they struggle with it because they know it is true. Our encouragement has to be just as solid and valid as everything else that comes out of our mouth. What is love? Love is a self-sacrificial presence, acceptance, forgiveness. It is delighting in them. It is belonging, where they feel that they belong to us no matter what. It is trust. It is encouragement. It is hope for the future. See, these are our core longings. And if they are filled in our homes, then they will be fine in life once they leave our homes. The biblical answer on love and forgiveness and encouragement is, again, that love, brothers, if anyone is caught in transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Love should be to restore them in the spirit of gentleness. That's forgiveness, restoration. Isn't that what God is doing with us? Love is encouragement. Fathers, do not provoke your children lest they become discouraged. How little is taught about not discouraging our children. But when we're constantly criticizing them, we are discouraging them. And God is purposely calling our attention to it. Discouragement can kill the spirit, can really kill the spirit of hope, of future, of desires, of creativity, And love, rather than speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into Him who is the head, into Christ. Real love is growing into Christ. Unfortunately, many Christian families have come to an attitude of, I will let them discover, I will let them live their own desires, even when it comes to following Christ. We need to speak to them all truth, which is God's truth in love. We need to help them to grow and grow in every way into Christ. If we really love them, we will help them grow into Christ. So, what is the challenge of parents today? The challenge is unforgiving hearts from our past, unforgiving hearts that is keeping control, even against our children. Controlling attitude, when we think if we hold and give love according to our will, then we will not lose power. Often it is unresolved deeper issues that are unrelated to our children. If you have time, I would like to encourage you to reflect on the question, how are we with God's love, forgiveness, and encouragement? And finally, let me show you just a little play around with words. Law or love? Instead of that question, I think we need to see that love should be born out of love, because love is God's law. I like how Chesterton says, let your religion be less of a theory and more of a love affair. Well, I changed it a little bit for you and for myself. Let your relationships be less of a theory and more of a love affair. Let your relationship with God be less of a theory and more of a love affair. Let your relationship with your children be less of a love theory and more of a love affair. And then we will not have to pick between law or love, because God is love and His love is law.